Hello everybody, I am Matthew Tenhuko. Today I will be giving you a tutorial on how to use Inkscape for your checklist to become a professional PI. So what our main goals for this are going to be to get a GT cutout file and a engraving file of text with a text box that has your name, major, and whatever else you want to type for your trophy. To start this process, we first want to be in Inkscape. Inkscape is has a black mountain as its icon for its app. Next, we want to go into File, and now we want to go into Import. And what you want to go to is you want to find in Desktop, this is my own computer, but in the actual computer you'll be using on the lasers, you can go into Desktop, and there should be a folder called Checklist Files. You can open that. This is usually in Desktop. And here we have Buzz and Guide DFX. Over here is a backup folder. Do not open this. Laser Masters will open it if one of the files in the checklist files ruined, as in someone uses save as instead of export. So first we want to import Buzz. Now, click OK, and now we have Buzz. So, two things to know. One, Buzz right now is a bitmap. So any PNG, JPEG, any of those types of files. And if you zoom in, you can see Buzz is like pixels. These pixels, the laser can't read. If we were engraving, this would be fine. The laser would just adjust, the laser would just grayscale this, and it would be good for engraving. But we want to cut out the GT. So in order to do that, we need to have the laser be able to read the image itself and the lines so it can cut out of the GT. To do that, we need to turn this into an SVG. So what we want to do is go into Paths, and we're going to Trace Bitmap. And as you can see on the right, we get this new screen called Trace Bitmap, and we also have a black and white image of Buzz. So all you really need to know right now is this threshold right here. The higher this threshold is, the brighter the color that will be included in the trace. So I put this all the way down here, it wouldn't include anything because all the colors are too bright. If I put it in the middle, it probably only include all the darker colors. But if I put it right here, it includes the yellow as well, which makes the GT black, which is all we want. So once this happens, we want to hit apply. And now, if you see, you can look at our new thing and you can see there are no pixels because it's now an SVG that the computer can read. So next we want to delete our original bitmap and have our SVG. So next we want to get this GT alone. We don't want Buzz or this R. So to do that, we first want to go into our node tools. Nodes are what make up this SVG. They're what create the shape. As you can see, if I move this node, you can see the shape changes based on the node's position and what other nodes it's connected to. So what we want to do is remove all these nodes except for the GT. There are three ways you can do this. First way is you can highlight a node and do control scroll. This control scroll, this basically gets all the nodes connected to it, but as you scroll, it gets nodes that are further away connected until it gets all the nodes connected. You can also just highlight over a node and do scroll shift. This basically makes a circle that as you scroll, it increases its radius and anything in the circle is deleted. So the last way is the more easier one. It's dragging a box around and then clicking Control A to select all nodes connected to nodes you already selected and hitting delete. And you can also shift click and do the same thing. So now we just have the GT. Next up, we want to resize the GT so its overall size is 9 by 5.75. To do that, let's go back to our selector tool. And now we can see over here, we have width and height and the units. First, we want to turn this to inches because we'll be using inches. And now we want the width to be 9 inches and the height to be 5.75 inches. scroll out, you can see our GT is the correct size. Once we have the GT, the next step is to move it to the left bottom corner, or the origin. This is just to help when we're placing the circles in the GT, so we can just type in the coordinates rather than having to calculate the relative distance between the origin and where we want the position of our holes to be on the GT. So to move the GT to the left bottom corner, we can either type in 0, 0 for the X and Y axis, for the X and Y values of the GT. Or you can use the command Control-Shift-R, which basically reduces your space, your making space to the drawing that's already in there. So it'll reduce the space to fit the GT. Next we have to make a red outline for the GT. Red is just an arbitrary color we chose for cutting, and since we're cutting only the outline, and since we want to cut, we only want the outline of the GT, so we can cut around the GT, make a GT for our drawing. So to first get rid of the black fill, it's because we don't want engraving. You just want to go over to the color section and click on the X for none. Now there's no fill, you can't see it anymore. To get a stroke on the GT, all you do is shift click the color you want, which is red. The next step is to reduce the thickness of these lines. Now, sometimes when your lines are too thick, the computer will think you want to engrave, even though the color is red and we want to cut. So to fix this problem, all we need to do is change the thickness of the lines. To do that, we're going to go to Object and go to Fill and Stroke. As you can see, there are different settings, like the fill setting, the stroke paint, and stroke style. Go to stroke style, change the uniform width to pixels, and then you can just change the width of the lines to be 1 pixel. This should be good enough so the computer thinks we're cutting. Now it's time to add the holes. So let's make a circle, and these circles should be 0.5 inches in diameter. So all you need to do is select them and change the width to 0.5, their height to 0.5. There you go. You have one circle. You can copy and paste another circle. Now what we do is move them to the coordinates that are listed inside your training document. So that would be one circle. All right, sorry. So next we want to make circles. Next, we want to make the holes for our GT sign. So let's go to the circle tool on the side, create a circle, and we want 0.15 inch diameter circles. So I need to select the circle, change its height and width to be 0.15. There you go. One circle down, we copy and paste. I have another circle. Next, we want to move to the coordinates 5, 1.5, and 5, 3. So let's start with the bottom circle. So we move X to 5, Y to 1.5. Next, second circle again, X to 5, Y to 3 this time. And there you go. Now we have a GT we can show to our PI. And that's the first part of the Inkscape done. So once you have your GT done, the next step in the software for laser is to make your guide DFX. To do that, let's go into File, and let's go and open our guide DFX into checklist files. So when you open guide DFX, you're going to get this screen called DFX input. And the main thing you want to look at in DFX input is the manual scale factor. So what this means is when you export a drawing or a surface from a CADing software like Inventor or AutoCAD, we don't know on the Inkscape side what default unit you used in that CADing software. Because Inkscape uses millimeters, if you use millimeters inside the CADing software, you can make this manual scale factor 1 because it's already in millimeters. But if we use inches inside the AutoCAD or the CADing software, then you want to change the scale factor 25.4 as there are 25.4 millimeters in an inch. But we won't know if this works until we test, so let's just test 25.4. Press OK. And once it is done loading, you can see that we now have a box. We're in the guide DFX, and this box looks correct. in the correct units. However, right now it's not has the correct width or height. The width and height right now are flipped, so let's change the width back to 3 inches and the height to 2 inches. Now we can Control Shift R. So the next step is making the lines of the guide thicker, as we want to make sure we can see our guide box on our trophy when we engrave. So to do that, you're going to go to Objects and you want to go to Fill and Stroke. Make sure your object is selected, your outline, and go to Stroke Style and change it from 1 pixel to maybe 4 pixels. See, that's much thicker and you'll be able to see it in your actual design. Now, the next step is making this so the computer reads it as an engraving. Because right now, these lines are a stroke, and computers read strokes as wanting to cut instead of engrave. But if we try to make this a fill, it fills the entire thing. But we don't want to fill the entire rectangle, we only want the outline. So to do that, we need to turn this stroke into a path. So to do that, you want to go to Path and go to Stroke to Path and click it. And now, as you can see down here, the stroke becomes unset and the fill becomes black. And the fill right now is the outline itself. So we're only engraving the outline. Now, when you do this, sometimes Inkscape likes to mess up and create your nodes may become weird, not misshapen. There's a really easy way to fix this. It's just manipulating the node. So as for example, let's say, let's start with this rectangle right here, which doesn't look like a rectangle at all. To fix this, we can first just combine these 3 nodes by selecting them, all 3 of them, and hitting Join Selected Nodes, and voila, now we only have one side, and we can adjust it so it makes a rectangle. And then for this side, you can see there's only 1 node, so that means this is more of a triangle than a rectangle. So we need another node to make a rectangle for this side. So to do that, we just double click on where we want a node and then stretch it. And there we go. We have 2 rectangles, and all you need to do now is just combine them. So we can just match this node, like so. Match it with this node. Or we can also match it with our white workspace, which is much more accurate. So if we do this, and then we do this, and this, there we go. Now you can see it's basically the same. You can Control Shift R again if you want to, and see it's still a bit not accurate, so we can adjust this again. Like this. This. There you go. So now it's pretty accurate. So next up, let's make a text box down here, and the text tool is the one with the letter A. And let's drag a text box across our guide. So next up, we want to type in our name, our major, our class number, etc. So anything you want. So as you can see right now, we can't really read what I typed, and that's because the text has an outline on it right now, which is making it look extremely thick. But what we want is an engraving, so we want a fill instead of a stroke. So we just change the stroke to be none and change the fill to be black. And voila, now you can see my text. Over in the text settings, if we go back into our text tool, you can see you can change the font to whatever you like. So let's say I just want, let's see, let's do Arial, I guess. Be simple. We can change the font size, so we can increase it. We can also change the spacing of our letters. So you can see right now it's at 0.1, so it's not that bad. It's pretty bad, but if I do this, now you can see the letters are spaced out. The lines are spaced out. Once you have chosen what you like, oh wow, that didn't save at all. So yeah, there you go. So once you have chosen the settings you like, the next step is centering your writing with the box. To do that, first select both the words and the box, and then go to Object and go to Align and Distribute. And on this side, you can see right now we're on relative to biggest object. What that means is if we try to center these objects, The smallest object is going to get centered relative to the center of the biggest object. So right now the biggest object is our guide, which we want to center our text around. So to center, just click center on vertical and center on horizontal axis. And voila! Now you have your guide complete. Now with your guide and GT done, the last step is to export these files. And all you need to do to export is go to File, hit Export, and then you can change where you want to export it, usually to Downloads, and make sure it's an SVG. Same goes for the GT. One thing to know, when you're using guide DFX, never use save, as you're going to overwrite the file for the guide DFX. Since it's not an import, and you just open the file. So if you press save, you're going to overwrite it, and it's going to be this. So please do not do that. And once you have exported the guide and GT, you can move on to Ruby and the hardware for the laser.